Hello folks, I'm LA Little. This is your daily NeoTA wrap where we take a look at these markets and we see what happened today and ask ourselves what does it tell us about tomorrow. Do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel LA Little. If you subscribe, you'll get content pushed anytime or you'll get a notification anytime I push content. Also do a show on weekly, that's on Sunday night, looking at the weeklies and the long-term charts. If we look at what happened today, it was a sell-off again. The Russell escaped it, but the indexes were down about 0.5%. They were down worse. They recovered, but the big news today really wasn't here. It was here and here. It was the dollar and the bonds, and they both got whacked again. That's after being whacked pretty good already. We also had Yellen come out and tell us that the stock market, imagine this, is overvalued. She has decided now that at this point in time that the stock market is overvalued. We've gone from 666, and that's an easy number to remember, right? All the way on the S&P, all the way up to 21 plus, and now we've decided that this market is overvalued. I am so thankful that she has given me the warning signal. It's insane. These things are insane. I want to look at, before we go to the indexes, I want to look at the dollar and look at the bonds. Because somebody is unwinding a big trade, not here, but in Europe it looks like. Or they're putting one on, one or the other. And the reason I say that is the dollar's plummeting, which means the euro is spiking. If we go look at that euro, and we might as well just start with it. If we look at the euro spikes up today, gets over this retest region bearish, right, after an extended move, right, gets over it. And if we look at it here, it's over this key area that I thought it wouldn't get over. So that tells me that someone wants to go long the euro, or they're unwinding a short, one of the two. And at the same time, if we go back now and look at the bonds, and this is happening all around the world, especially in Europe, they're selling off, and they're doing the same thing in Europe. Rates are going up. So that trade that looks to be either being put on or most likely unwound is to short, is to take those shorts off on the euro and simultaneously sell the bonds, right, and drive the rates up. And I don't know exactly what that trade means, but that certainly seems to be what's happening, and that's putting pressure everywhere else. Now the concern here, of course, is that if we look at this on a weekly, this thing has broken on an ABCD structure on the weekly now, and it's doing it with some pretty good volume, and it's going to come down into this area that we talked about, and it's going to do the test, right? And it's actually going to get under there. It's almost under it already. That was the big spike back on the October low. That low is 120.05. We're trading at 120.56. Looks to me like it's going to hit it tomorrow, maybe blow it away or get into underneath it on Friday's employment number potentially. But something is happening large. The fact that this is selling off and the rates are starting to rise is actually, I assume, what Yellen wanted, and is putting pressure on the market, right? As these rates rise, the big bugaboo dollar no longer is the concern, which is all we heard in the earnings calls. Now all of a sudden we got rates rising, which is a concern. It's a catch-22, folks. You know, there's no way around it. You can't have all these variables working your way. And the Fed is basically, you know, unless they want to print money, they're going to have to deal with the consequences. And they don't want to print the money. And the consequences are it's going to hurt the market. It's going to be tough on the market. And that seems to be what's happening. Let's go back. Well, actually, we'll come back to this. Let me take a quick break. We'll come back to the indexes and look at the overseas markets and try to make sense of where the rest of this week is going. I'll be right back.
If you are serious about trading, TA Today's Tools is the perfect service to help you reach your trading goals. Go to our homepage and click Use Our Tools. Here you will find an overview of this amazing service we offer to our clients. One of the tools you will have access to is the TA Today charts. These charts visually map all the neoclassical concepts that LA writes and teaches about and is the perfect charting service for neoclassical traders. Learn the trend of a stock you're interested in and see this stock on all 3 time frames. To get started with a free 2-week trial, go to our homepage, click Use Our Tools, and then click the free trial button.
I'm going to start with the overseas markets. Australia. I talked about Australia, I don't know, it was a few days back, and I said, I just don't like the way this looks. And if you think now, dollar coming down, what does that mean? That means the currencies of these countries are going up. Wait a minute. That's how they've been able to raise their markets, right? That's how Australia has moved up. If you look back here, this big pop up, well, now you break a swing point low. I don't know if you're going to have the volume. It looks like you probably will be close. Going to come back into a retest regen. And we're going to see this in a number of countries, right? Pressure coming into those countries as a result of their currencies rising, which has not been the case for a while now. Matter of fact, these countries have all skyrocketed as a result of that not being the case. India, we talked about India probably breaking back down. It was doing a bearish retest regen. I think I said last night, it looks to me like it's going to go lower. And as I've said a few times now, the real buy is going to be back here if it can get there. And it looks to me like it's going to try to get there. Not all at once, but working that way. Brazil's been on a push up, got a little turnaround today, did leave a little volume. On the weekly, it's just a big range. I don't see anything special here. French markets, they actually have more volume tonight than they did last night. They did a doji. That could be a continuation or a reversal, but at this point, it's not clear which it is. That low still hasn't broke the swing point low over here, nor this one. This looks to me like this could go either way. I don't see an easy way to read that one. Let's see if the DAX tells us something more. Now here we got less volume and a doji. That looks like it's going to try to bounce. Well, I should take that back. 2, 3. Yeah, probably a bounce. Small. Some sort of small bounce is the way this one's set up. But I wouldn't be putting any big money on that trade. Toronto, let's look at my friends up north. Well, you get a stronger currency, what happens? You sell off. And they're going to come back into this big bar that we were talking about. And that's there's 2 of them. There's one at 14.5. There's another one here at 14.8.5. Hong Kong. Let's look at the 8 shares. They're starting to sell off as well. And they're trying to get back, as I said, I think last night, they're trying to get back into this area, right, this gap area. And they're almost there. So it looks like maybe some more selling tonight. Let me see here. That got, actually might get a bounce. 13,977. Oh, wow. Closed just underneath it. And also here, that looks to me like it's going to, try to go a little bit farther lower. Again, it's like Germany. Could bounce, but it's underneath it. It looks just like the Russell did, and the Russell got a bounce today. Hong Kong. Let's look at the actual Hong Kong market. Again, wants to get back down into the lower numbers. This is not a bad looking trade as it's coming back though, right? You're coming back and you got no volume compared to what you came up on. That's a good situation. And this one looks to me like this area here just may be where it's going to try to get to, and that's probably going to be the buy for this market for a bounce. That low is, what is that, 27.3, not that far away. Let's look at actually Shanghai. I don't have my data in still, but I've got enough to start looking at it. It gets under here. We were talking in the trading room today, 4,200 to about 4,000. It's right at the 42 number. We'll see if that turns it around. Oh, I just looked at Hong Kong. Let's look at, I don't think Japan's been trading. Japan's still, yeah, Japan starts trading again tonight, I believe. Taiwan, let me see. Let me grab Taiwan. And that one held again. That, you see that key area? This one's going to bounce. Taiwan's going to get a decent bounce. So moving from the world markets back to ours, you know, the world markets are not bad. I mean, they're set up pretty well for some sort of a little bounce tomorrow. Taiwan is the strongest looking one. But you've got a pretty good push back down. It really is going to depend on those currencies. And right now, when I look at the FXE and I look at the dollar, I'm not so sure what they're going to give. And right now, those bonds, right, they don't show any sign of giving up. So I don't think you're going to get much of a bounce if you get a bounce in the world markets. Coming to our market, we got under this low, we didn't have enough volume, we hold it, they pushed it up right at the end of the day, and they get it right back over that low. This also looks like it can get a little bounce. If I look at the NASDAQ now closes under it, looks like. Doesn't have as much volume, but closes under it. This looks just like the Russell did yesterday, and we could get a little bounce off of that, but again, I don't think it's going to be much. NDX, now the NDX, weaker, stays under that low by a decent amount, right? And there's nothing it's coming into yet. So this actually looks like, you know, yeah, you can come back in and test into this low, potentially test, let me just point it out here, you could potentially test, you know, back into this low, or even back into these two, you know, the cross current of this. But I don't like the way this looks. It looks to me like it still wants to go lower. And one of the big problems inside this is Apple. You know, Apple traded down on earnings. Apple held on today. Looks like it's going to get a little bounce. But, you know, this thing is hurting and wants to go back to the 120 area where the big support is. Microsoft, remember, had the big spike up, coming all the way back. And Google, we talked about Google. It gave you a gift sale if you were in it, all the way back down to where it was. That's what's pressuring these indexes, right? The big three. If I look at, and I'm just going to look a little farther here. If I look at the SOX, right, that continues to struggle. And if I go over and look at the biotechs, biotechs had a takeover today and couldn't hardly rise. You know, something is not quite right here. Moving on, Russell. If we look at the Russell, it actually got under, back over, had about the same amount of volume. So Russell, yeah, you got a little bounce, can get a little bit more bounce, maybe come back and do a retest regen off this prior low. That's what it tried to do before. It may come back for a second time here, but this one actually looks like it wants to go lower too. Again, I don't want to read too much in these charts one way or the other, but as of tonight, the overriding factor looks to be the currencies and the bonds, and neither one of those look to stop yet. You might get a little pause in those, gives you a little bounce in the markets, but these all look like they're setting up to try and test lower. That's going to be it for tonight. I appreciate you for joining me. Have a great one. Tell a friend. Tell two I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. See you tomorrow night. Have a great one. Good night.